Step into the ancient, stone-laden streets of Jerusalem, a city trembling under the weight of imperial rule, where every shadow holds a secret, every whisper carries the echo of prophecy, and the air is thick with tension between faith and power. This is not merely a tale of history, it is a profound, gripping drama that has shaped the spiritual destiny of billions. At the heart of this story stands a figure both revered and reviled, Caiaphas, or Joseph ben Caiaphas, the high priest who wielded immense religious authority from 18 to 36 AD during one of the most volatile periods in Jewish history. His name is etched into the pages of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, not as a hero but as a pivotal architect of the trial and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. But who was Caiaphas really? Beyond the biblical accounts and historical fragments, what drove him to orchestrate the downfall of a man many now call the Son of God? Was he a mere instrument of divine will, or a calculating politician consumed by fear, pride, and self-preservation? These are not idle questions. They cut to the core of human nature, power, and the cost of truth in a world ruled by compromise. Imagine this: a clandestine meeting under the cover of darkness, the flicker of oil lamps casting long shadows on marble floors. The year is likely 30 or 33 AD. It's Passover, the holiest night in the Jewish calendar, a time for families to gather, for rituals to unfold in peace, for hearts to remember liberation. Yet in the opulent home of the high priest, an illegal tribunal is convened. No quorum, no daylight, no due process. Just a rush to judgment, cloaked in secrecy, driven by urgency and dread. This was no accident. This was deliberate. Caiaphas, the guardian of religious law, violated it himself. He summoned a fraction of the Sanhedrin, far short of the sacred 71 members required by Jewish jurisprudence. The trial was held at night, forbidden by tradition. The accused was not granted proper defense. Witnesses contradicted each other. And yet, the verdict was already written. What? Because Jesus had become a threat, not just to the religious order, but to the delicate balance between Jewish autonomy and Roman oppression. And Caiaphas, more than any other figure, understood that balance. He had held power longer than almost any high priest before him, nearly 2 decades, a feat made possible not by piety alone, but by political survival. Born around 14 BC, Joseph ben Caiaphas rose to prominence during the reign of Roman prefect Valerius Gratus, who appointed him in 18 AD after deposing Simon ben Camath. This act alone reveals the extent of Roman control. The high priesthood was no longer a purely spiritual office, but a political appointment, subject to imperial approval. Caiaphas was not just a religious leader, he was a collaborator, a mediator, a man walking a tightrope between divine duty and earthly power. And now Jesus, a humble teacher from Galilee, had disrupted everything. Jesus didn't just preach. He acted. He healed the sick, raised the dead, fed thousands, and challenged the very foundations of the temple system. He overturned the money changers' tables, declaring, "Stop turning my Father's house into a market." Untold. He touched lepers, dined with sinners, and forgave sins, acts that, in the eyes of the religious elite, bordered on blasphemy. But it wasn't just his actions. It was his authority. He spoke not as a scribe citing tradition, but as one who owned truth. And when he said, "I and the Father are one," John 10 verse 30, the leaders didn't just disagree, they wanted him dead. Yet they couldn't act alone. They needed a reason. A charge. A scandal. Enter Judas Iscariot, the insider, the betrayer, the man who walked beside divine grace and chose silver instead. Judas was not a monster from the start. He was one of the 12, close to Jesus, privy to miracles, teachings, and intimate moments. But something in him twisted. Perhaps it was greed. Perhaps it was disillusionment. Like many Jews of his time, Judas expected the Messiah to be a warrior king, a revolutionary who would rise against Rome and restore Israel's throne. But Jesus spoke of love, sacrifice, and a kingdom not of this world. When Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," John 14 verse 6, Judas may have heard not a spiritual declaration, but a coded promise of rebellion. When no uprising came, his hope turned to bitterness. And when 30 pieces of silver were offered, his loyalty collapsed. The betrayal was sealed with a kiss, a grotesque parody of affection, in the Garden of Gethsemane. From there, Jesus was seized, not taken to the temple courtyard as protocol demanded, but dragged directly to Caiaphas' house. This was no oversight. It was strategy. According to John's Gospel, Jesus was first taken to Annas, Caiaphas' father-in-law and former high priest, a man of immense influence who still pulled strings from behind the scenes, John 18 verses 13 to 24. After a brief, confrontational interview, Jesus was sent to Caiaphas, where the full weight of the Sanhedrin's hostility would be unleashed. But Caiaphas faced a dilemma. He couldn't execute Jesus on religious charges. Rome reserved the right of capital punishment. And the accusations against Jesus, stirring crowds, claiming to destroy the temple, weren't enough to justify crucifixion under Roman law. So he needed a confession, a provocation. Witnesses were called. They claimed Jesus said, "I will destroy this temple made with hands and in 3 days build another not made with hands." Mark 14 verse 58. But their testimonies didn't agree. The case was falling apart. So Caiaphas changed tactics. He stood before Jesus and asked the one question designed to trap. "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Mark 14 verse 61. Silence. Then the answer. "I am," Jesus said. "And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." Mark 14 verse 62, cf. Psalm 110 verse 1, Daniel 7 verse 13. That was it. Caiaphas tore his robes. "Why do we need any more witnesses?" he cried. "You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" Mark 14 verses 63 to 64. In Jewish law, blasphemy was a capital offense. But in Roman law, not punishable by death. So the charge had to be reframed. They would accuse Jesus of sedition. Before Pilate, they wouldn't say, "He claims to be God." They'd say, "We found this man subverting our nation, opposing payment of taxes to Caesar, and claiming to be Messiah, a king." Luke 23 verse 2. That would get Rome's attention. And so, Jesus was brought to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. But Pilate saw through the scheme. "I find no basis for a charge against this man," he declared, Luke 23 verse 4. Learning Jesus was from Galilee, he sent him to Herod Antipas, who mocked him and sent him back. Pilate was trapped. He knew Jesus was innocent. But the crowd, stirred by the chief priests, demanded Barabbas, a violent insurrectionist, be freed instead. "Crucify him," they shouted. Pilate washed his hands. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said, Matthew 27 verse 24. But he sentenced Jesus to death anyway. And so, the path to Golgotha began. Jesus, weakened by scourging, carried his cross through the streets of Jerusalem. 2 criminals were crucified beside him. Darkness fell over the land at noon and lasted 3 hours. The earth shook. The temple veil was torn in two, from top to bottom, as if heaven itself was reacting. Jesus' final words, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Then he breathed his last. This was not just a death. It was a sacrifice, the culmination of a divine mission to redeem humanity. Christians commemorate this moment every year on Good Friday, the solemn prelude to Easter, the celebration of resurrection and hope. But what of Caiaphas after it all? When reports spread that Jesus had risen, the priests panicked. They bribed the guards to say the disciples stole the body, Matthew 28 verses 11 to 15, a lie that persists to this day. They tried to suppress the truth, but the movement only grew. Years later, Caiaphas was deposed by Lucius Vitellius the Elder, the Roman legate of Syria. The reasons are unclear, perhaps political shifts, perhaps loss of favor. But his legacy was sealed. In Dante's Inferno, Caiaphas is condemned to the 8th circle of hell, reserved for hypocrites and falsifiers. He is nailed to the ground, face up, so that others must walk over him, a symbolic punishment for leading Christ to death. Now consider this, who died first, Jesus or Judas? Jesus died on the cross. Judas, overcome with guilt, returned the silver and hanged himself, Matthew 27 verses 3 to 5. So Jesus died first, though Judas' death followed soon after. But what happened when they met beyond this world? Did Judas face the eyes of the one he betrayed? Did he beg for forgiveness? Or was it too late? And Caiaphas, did he ever wonder if he condemned an innocent man? Did he lie awake at night, haunted by the words, "You will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power"? We may never know. But this story is not just about the past. It's about choices, about power, about truth, about what we do when confronted with something greater than ourselves. If this journey has moved you, if it has stirred your heart or challenged your mind, please like, subscribe, and share. Let's keep the conversation alive. And now, a final question. What would you have done if you were in Caiaphas' place? Would you have protected your position? Or would you have fallen on your knees and said, "My Lord and my God"? This is more than history. This is a mirror. See you next time. Thanks for watching.